Hi there and welcome. It's Jennifer McGuire. I hope you're having a great day. Today I thought I'd share with you a technique where you can use your stamps and coordinating dies to create a fun gatefold card design. It's very easy to do, works great with stamps and coordinating dies, but it also works great with any basic die shape. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm going to show you a few varieties, but first let's start with the stamping in the center. I'm using my Misty stamping tool, but you could really use an acrylic block for this by all means. I wanted to show you that with my Misty, I have started to use a piece of laminated paper. I was going through a lot of paper, so I decided to laminate one, and I found that I'm able to use it a lot, and I can wipe it clean if I need to, and it fits in nicely. I also decided to switch to magnet bars. I just find this works better than two magnets, but by all means you can still use the regular magnets. And I put a piece of washi on it to be a handle. So you'll see me using this in videos in the future. Now I'm going to start with those hearts in the center. I cut a bunch of pieces of cardstock. I'll link to the cardstocks that I use. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the center. Now the stamp set that I'm using is from a Hero Arts card kit. It's a January card kit. And you can see this giant stamp set that's in it. There are these stamps and then the shadow images that perfectly fit together with the outline images. So you can stamp them on top of each other and it looks like you colored in the stamps without taking the time. So I'm going to create the shadow first. So I'm going to ink this up with Hero Arts white unicorn ink. This is my favorite white ink. And I'm going to stamp that onto all the different pieces of cardstock because I'm making several images or several cards at once. You see you get a bright white image. Now this is a pigment ink. It will stay wet for a bit, so I'm going to make sure I heat set it afterwards so that I don't have to worry about smearing it. Okay, so I've stamped this on a bunch of different pieces of cardstock. Now I'm heat setting it completely. I want to white heat emboss on top of this. And if I went ahead and just stamped on top of this and white heat embossed, the powder would stick to this white pigment ink. That's why I want to make sure it's completely heat set. I also want to use my anti-static powder tool over the entire piece, and I'm going to test it first. And the way I test to make sure that it's completely not sticky anymore is to put some white embossing powder on top of it, and if it all falls off, I know I'm ready to go. So now that I'm sure it's not sticky anymore, I'm going to take the outline image and line it up perfectly with right over the stamped image. Line it up perfectly, close my Misty door on it, and now I can stamp with Versamark ink the outline image right on top of it. I'm going to add my white embossing powder and heat set that. So basically what we have here is a white heat embossed floral image, and it seems like it's colored in with a soft white pigment ink. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but I'm going to show you another example that will show it a little bit better. So here are all the tone-on-tone stamping, that white heat embossed image with the soft white coloring on the inside. I did want to do one that was more colorful so you could see a difference a little bit more. So here is that example. For this, I'm going to use the Hero Arts ombre ink. It's like a pink to a red ombre ink pad. I'm using white cardstock here. So for the solid kind of shadow image, I'm using the ombre ink. With the ombre ink, you want to be sure to ink it up by kind of cha-chaing back and forth. See how I kind of go back and forth? That allows it to blend. So I'm going to stamp that and you can see that beautiful ombre look. I'm going to go ahead and heat set that just to make sure that it's dry. Use my anti-static powder tool. And now I'm going to black heat emboss the outline image right on top. To do this, I'm using black VersaFine pigment ink, and then I'm going to use a clear embossing powder. You get that beautiful black outline raised look with that beautiful ombre coloring in the inside. I just wanted to share that colorful variation. Now that we have all of our stamped hearts created, it's time to do that die cut gatefold card design. For this, I have cut a bunch of pieces of cardstock the same colors to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So basically what I did is I took 8.5 by 11 cardstock and cut it in half. Now to turn this into a gatefold card design, you need to score from both ends of each piece at 2 1/8 of an inch. So I'm putting my washi tape there at 2 1/8 of an inch. The reason I'm putting my washi tape onto my trimmer there is so that each time I can put my cardstock right up against that washi tape edge and score, and I know it's scored the perfect amount since I have so many pieces to score. You don't need to do the washi tape, but it's a nice little trick. You could also use a scoreboard for this, but I just like to do my scoring right in that little edge of my trimmer. I just find it's just as easy. So that score line is 2 1/8 of an inch from each ends of those cardstocks. Okay, so again, these are cut to 8.5 by 5.5. This is really easy to do. Now, after you've done those 2 score lines on each, you want to kind of fold them in and meet in the center. Once you have them meeting in the center perfectly, hold your fingers there, and then just use your bone folder to just kind of smooth out those score lines that you created. So now you have a nice gatefold card design. You can use this in so many different ways. Today, we're going to create a little die cut window. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this with all of the cards that I have. Now it's time to create that little die cut heart window. I'm going to use the heart die that coordinates with the stamping that we did earlier, and these dies are part of the kit also. I'm going to take my folded card and open it up, and I have one of the flaps there. I'm going to take that heart and line it up right centered on the edge of that flap. So you see how the center of the heart is lined up with the edge of that flap. I'm going to use some temporary micropore tape to hold it in place. You could use washi tape if you want to. Now I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, and it'll cut half a heart where the center of the heart is right along that edge. So now I'm going to close up my card, and I'm going to take the die and kind of pop it in place with that die cutting that we just did. It pops in kind of like a puzzle. Once I have it popped in place, I'm going to take tape to tape the die to the other flap. Now I can be sure that that heart is lined up, so both halves of the die cut heart will match in the middle. So now I open up the card again and die cut the other flap. So now when I remove this die, you'll see that the center of the heart matches perfectly on each side. This is a great trick. It's very easy to do, and I did this with all of the cards. But think of all the different shapes of dies or coordinating dies that you can have kind of cut a gatefold card design like this. Now I wanted to show you a few variations that you can do to the background of this card just to add a little bit of interest. So I die cut that heart from each of the cards, but let me show you some of the backgrounds that I created. For the blue one, I put a piece of Post-it note on the inside just for masking purposes so I don't stamp on the inside of the card. And now I'm stamping that little outline heart repeated stamp that you see on the stamp set there on the left. That stamp set is one of the add-on stamps that you can get with this month's monthly card kit from Hero. I'm just going to stamp those hearts repeatedly with white pigment ink, and it's a great soft looking stamped image on the background. It just adds a little bit of interest to it. So you can take any stamp you want and just repeatedly stamp it with the white pigment ink and get a great soft look. Once I'm done, I can remove the Post-it and go ahead and heat set that because you don't want that white pigment ink to smear. Now I have the heart that I stamped before, and I did fussy cut that to cut out right up against the edge of the white embossing that we did. Adding this into the center with foam tape. And you'll see, since the coordinating die is always a little bit bigger than the stamped image, you'll see a little opening to the inside of the card that I really like. If you wanted to save time, you could have done the stamping directly onto the inside of the card and allow it to show through the window. And that way you wouldn't have to do the fussy cutting. But I wanted to be able to add it with like foam adhesive so it popped out of the window a bit, but either way would be fine. Now what I've done here is I have my Spectrum Noir shimmer pen, and I put some white pigment ink onto an acrylic block. And I'm using my Spectrum Noir shimmer pen to pick up some of that white so that when I add in to kind of color into these flowers, I'm adding some of the white and some shimmer at the same time. You could totally skip this if you wanted to. I did do that white stamping originally, but I really wanted to make it more vivid, more white in the center and a little bit of shimmer. The video really doesn't pick up the shimmer, but really is gorgeous in real life. Okay, so that shows white pigment ink on the background for a little bit of interest. This example, I'm going to show you how to use an embossing folder on the background. So I have my Sizzix Big Shot here, and I'm opening up all the tabs. This is how you use the embossing folders on a Big Shot, but any die cut machine would work. This is a Tim Holtz dot background embossing folder. I really like this one. I'm going to take one of the flaps of our die cut card design, and I'm going to put it halfway into the embossing folder, and I'll run it through. Then I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other half. And that way we have the embossing done on both of the flaps. So the whole front of the card will be embossed. I didn't do the embossing before the die cutting because that would have flattened all of our embossing. You want your embossing folder to be the last thing that you run through the die cut machine because you don't want to flatten that pattern. And I think this example happens to be my favorite. I really like those little raised dots. It adds a little bit of interest that's not too distracting. You can see that the embossing is only on the front. I did that on the pink card too. Now on the purple card, I did something a little bit different. It's stamping again, but this time I saved a lot of time by using a background stamp. So I have Post-it notes that I'm actually putting in upside down into the inside of the card. The reason I'm doing that is to mask the inside of the card, but also keep the card closed while we do the stamping. I have a Hero Arts background here, and I'm using Passion Flower ink. It's like a nice pinkish purple. And I'm just going to lay the front of my card down onto the ink stamp and press all around. This is a really fast way to do some stamping on the background of the card. And that ink will soften with time, and you end up with a beautiful tone-on-tone look. So there is that example. Now for that white card with the floral hearts in the center that are pink, wanted to do something a little bit different to this one. And I'm using a great new background die that is part of this Hero Arts monthly kit release. So you can get this as an add-on. Really love these background dies like this. I'm just going to die cut the background from some white cardstock. And this is the same white cardstock that I used to create the gatefold card design. So now for this one, I'm going to trim a little bit around the edges because this covers the entire front of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. And I want some of the edge of the background card to show around the outside of this. So I'm just trimming a little bit off of each side. Then I'm going to cut it right down the center, right along the center mark, which happens to be 2 inches here because I cut this down to 4 inches wide. So now I'm going to glue these 2 halves onto the 2 flaps of one of my gatefold cards. Notice that I have not done the heart die cutting yet. I find it's easier to do after you've glued these down, and we're just going to die cut through all the layers. So I've glued that right onto the front of the card, and now we can do that same process that I did before using the coordinating die. I just line it up along the edge of one of the flaps with the center of the heart right down that flap edge, and then I repeated it on the other side. So now we have that gorgeous tone-on-tone background die cut on top of it. And now I can glue that little heart that I cut out right in the center. So it's really a great way to add a little bit of interest to the background. And remember, you could have saved a lot of time by doing that stamping directly on the inside of the card instead of doing the fussy cutting like I did. Okay, so next I want to create these little vellum sleeves that slide over the card and keep it closed. These are really fun to add to cards, especially gatefold cards, using the same stamp set from the Hero Arts monthly kit, and it's a sentiment that says, "You're so loved." I'm stamping this with Versamark ink along the center of a 1 inch by 11 inch piece of vellum. Vellum works great for this technique, and you just want to make sure that your vellum's long enough to wrap around the card. Adding some white embossing powder and heat setting it, just make sure your heat gun's good and hot before you heat set on vellum so you don't have any warping. To create the sleeve, you just want to center the sentiment on the front of the card and hold it there, and then just fold the 2 ends of the vellum around to the back of the card. Now, I don't fold it too tight along the card because I want this to be able to come off easily as like a sleeve that you slide off before you open the card. If you do it too tight, it might confuse somebody and they may not realize that it just needs to slide off. So I just kind of fold it loosely around the sides. I trim a little bit off the back, and then I just use some strong double-sided tape to glue the 2 ends of the vellum together. Now, I don't really worry that I can see this tape through it because it's on the back of the sleeve, and really I don't think anybody will notice. So I'm just going to tape those 2 ends together, and now this just slides right onto the card. So when the person gets it, they slide it off, and then they can open the card. This is a great way to add the sentiment also. I created the same vellum sentiment sleeve for all the different cards that I created. Now I'm trying to stick with stamping a matching envelope every time I create a card, so I thought I'd go ahead and show that too. I'm using one of the other add-on stamp options that's available this month for the Hero Arts kit. I really like both of these stamp sets, but I decided to go with the one on the right. It's got this cute little envelope, a message that says "Sending my love" and a little heart. So I'm stamping the envelope and the sentiment at the same time, and then I'm stamping the little heart in the center of that. And I'm just using an ink that matches perfectly with the cards we created, stamping it onto those fun flapped envelopes from Hero Arts. Just wanted to keep it simple to go along with the card design. So there you have a fun way to use your stamps and coordinating dies to create a gatefold card design with a little vellum sentiment sleeve. In the YouTube description, I have links to all the products I use, including the cardstocks that I use. You can also go to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com for so much more information. I encourage you to check that out. And then in the middle are a few other videos that are similar that might be helpful to you. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.